Where do you locate your mind? Is it confined to your brain? Certainly, your brain is responsible for memory, planning, decision-making, and problem-solving. However, you also employ other tools to remember, plan, and judges such as technology and other people. Your mind, therefore, extends beyond your brain, comprising not only organic matter but also inanimate objects like wood, stone, and steel. Thanks to communication, we can even integrate others into our minds, leveraging their memories, knowledge, and perspectives. This interdependence allows us to specialize and collaborate, delegating certain tasks to others while relying on their expertise in return. As a species, we are a lumbering growth, propelled by imagination, passion, and reason. The power of reason has propelled us to greater knowledge, improved decision-making, and better quality of life. However, our reliance on technology has created unintended consequences, threatening to overwhelm our rational capacities. For instance, the rapid pace of urbanization and industrialization has contributed to global warming, triggering more severe and frequent weather events. This, in turn, exacerbates food shortages, famines, and displacement. To address these challenges, we need to rethink everything from our energy sources to our transportation systems to our lifestyles. Achieving this requires collaboration between local and national governments, as well as a willingness to make trade-offs and incur costs. Ultimately, it's up to us to direct our future, leveraging the power of reason to overcome the challenges of the present. How do we achieve consensus when dealing with complex problems such as rethinking habits, traditions, and values, especially when they involve issues that are not immediately evident, distant in space and time, affect people differently, and involve uncertainty due to scientific factors? Philosopher Timothy Morton coined the term hyperobject to describe something that is so widely distributed in time and space and so all-encompassing that it is sticky and adheres to everything that comes into contact with it. As civilizations progress, they inevitably encounter hyperobjects, which can serve as a great filter to weed out those that cannot adapt. The impact of humanity on the planet is one such hyperobject, which is the topic of Bill Gates' book How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. To address this issue, we need to understand the nature of the human mind and its biases. While it is easy to assume that rationality is the key to solving such problems, the reality is more complex. Behavioral inertia, the tendency to maintain the status quo, is not necessarily a flaw but an adaptive mechanism that has helped organisms survive and thrive. However, it can also hinder innovation and adaptation. The impact of our actions on the environment is not always immediately evident, making it easier to maintain the status quo. One of the greatest challenges facing advancing civilizations is the responsibility that comes with wielding technology and distributed cognition. Empathy is also essential to navigating complex problems and extending the mind. However, the lower instincts of human nature may bias us, making it essential to use reason to guide our decisions. Reasoning involves making inferences from the information we have, and while we do this automatically, conscious consideration of the reasoning process is necessary to arrive at informed conclusions. Eratosthenes accurately calculated the circumference of the Earth using his understanding of shadows and the speed of camels, rather than by physically measuring it. This ability to reason and infer has allowed humans to make progress and develop logic and mathematics, which separate us from other animal species. However, despite the value of reasoning and logic, disagreements still occur, leading to the enigma of reason. It is tempting to believe that those who disagree with us are simply irrational, but the world is not always a logical puzzle. For example, the puzzle about whether a married person is looking at an unmarried person appears to have an ambiguous answer, but upon closer examination, the answer is actually yes. However, the rules of logic cannot always be applied to real-world situations, as assumptions may be subjective or biased. Studies show that humans are not always good at reasoning and are often biased, lazy, and flawed in their thinking. Even when presented with evidence, people may still cling to their initial beliefs due to cognitive biases. In summary, while reasoning and logic are valuable tools, they are not always sufficient for navigating complex real-world situations, and humans are not always capable of using them effectively. The magician used a clever trick to slip in some of the faces that had been rejected, and most people didn't even notice. They were able to explain their choice, even though they hadn't actually made one. Studies have shown that we tend to give reasons for our beliefs that may not accurately reflect how we arrived at those beliefs. Our brains are wired to intuit things without conscious reasoning. For example, we can tell when someone is upset without consciously analyzing their behavior. When asked to explain our intuition, we may come up with reasons that may or may not be accurate. While reasoning can help us solve puzzles and make decisions, we also have biases that can lead us astray. We may prefer products with more features, even if we don't need them, because it's easier to justify our decision to others. Researchers Hugo Mercier and Dan Sperber suggest that reasoning helps us make social decisions and communicate with others. Our ability to reason and cooperate sets us apart from other animals and allows us to plan, build, and strategize in ways that can be modified and improved over time. Reasons also help us justify ourselves and our beliefs to others. The theory of social reasoning helps us understand why two individuals can arrive at different conclusions even when they are both rational and sincere in their thinking. Everyone has a unique combination of brain, values, disposition, and experiences that drive their thought process. The reasons that people give for their beliefs may not always be the true reasons, but they are the best that they can do. The social theory of reasoning also explains why people often give weak reasons for their beliefs, especially when they are not trying to persuade others. Constructing a solid argument for everything would be a waste of time and cognitive resources. Therefore, people only provide reasons when they are pressed for them, tailoring their work to suit the intended audience. As the interlocutor presses harder, the reasons become stronger until a decision is reached. The social theory of reasoning can even explain the existence of biases that don't seem to make sense. It would be logical for an organism to pay attention to information that contradicts its beliefs, but that's not always the case. Confirmation bias is the tendency to look for and interpret information that confirms what we already believe. It makes it difficult to accept new, inconvenient data and is a problem for the intellectualist view of reason. However, social theory explains that reasoning is a group activity, and confirmation bias has the cognitive work that must be done. Sometimes a lone reasoner may have a bad idea, but their reasons are sufficient for those who agree with them. When the idea is subjected to deliberation and collective thought, it can be evaluated and judged by the crowd. For a long time, humans have recognized the effectiveness of group decision-making, or what is known as the wisdom of the crowds. This is the idea that a diverse group of people can collectively come up with a better solution than any individual alone, even someone who is highly educated or powerful. We have seen this demonstrated in experiments, where a group's average guess at a quantity, such as the number of jelly beans in a jar, is often closer to the actual amount than any single person's guess. However, our society is becoming increasingly individualistic, and it is easy for people to form their own opinions without engaging in meaningful discussions with others. The internet has given us access to more perspectives than ever before, but it also allows us to retreat into echo chambers where we only hear from people who share our views. Furthermore, technology has made it possible for us to stay informed about a seemingly endless array of issues, but it can be difficult for any one person to have a deep understanding of all of them. In response, we may look to lone reasoners who can defend our opinions for us, even if their arguments are not particularly well informed or convincing. This can be problematic because it means that we are not engaging in the kind of reasoned debate that is necessary for making good decisions. Instead, we are simply looking for people who will validate our pre-existing beliefs. Even worse, we may be exposed to false or misleading information that is presented convincingly, simply because it looks professional. To combat this trend, some experts recommend national deliberation days, where citizens can come together to discuss their opinions and share their reasons for holding them. This would allow us to tap into the wisdom of the crowds, and to make decisions that are well-informed and reflective of diverse perspectives. It may not be as exciting as following a charismatic leader or defending our own opinions, but it is the hard work of democracy, and it is essential for creating a just and equitable society. Testing such strategies has revealed that returning to small, focused discussions that align with our reasoning abilities can enhance participants' comprehension of their beliefs, decisions, and actions. Some have even suggested that the ideal future of reason lies in the establishment of a plutocracy, a government in which randomly selected individuals to make decisions rather than elected officials. If we can choose the fate of an individual in this way, why not the fate of the people? What if decisions were made not solely by politicians, but occasionally by diverse groups of citizens who represent various viewpoints and are compensated for their time to learn from experts and deliberate on a particular issue until a conclusion is reached or a recommendation is made? Individuals selected at random would rely solely on their conscience rather than being motivated by re-election, money, attention, or power. Special interests in corporations would not be able to influence those likely to be elected since anyone could serve, meaning they would have to appeal to and protect everyone. Over time, more and more of our neighbors would have the opportunity to participate in learning and deliberation, rather than it being done by distant strangers in inaccessible offices. While elected leaders may cultivate celebrity status and a mandate, our understanding of reasoning indicates that we evolved not to rely on a few great minds but on the authority of the collective mind. The collective mind encompasses everyone and everything. Lotteries were utilized to fill many political positions in ancient Athens, and Aristotle noted that the appointment of magistrates by lot is thought to be democratic, and the election of them is an oligarchy, where an oligarchy is a government by a small group of people. Regardless of how reason is returned to its social roots, if we can create more and better spaces for deliberation and use them to apply reason effectively to hyper-objects such as the impact of emissions on the planet, we will teach future generations a valuable lesson. Although expanding participation may prove challenging, it may provide us all with a sense of existential security. The impact of emissions on our planet will not be the final hyper-problem we encounter. If we can address it effectively, perhaps in the distant future, when our civilization has progressed to the point where people can be quantumly recreated or something similar, they will look back at our time and say, let's bring them all back to life, so we can utilize their cooperative abilities. Ultimately, the saying history is the great teacher may serve as a useful guide, since someday we will all be teachers ourselves, as we will all someday be part of history. We will eventually become the ancients, and we can decide what that means. As always, thank you for watching.